Next on the Nightcast, a Hoosier family shares their story of the loved one who left for the Pentagon and never came home. Plus, the Hoosier reaction to ABC's The Path to 9/11 and the information simply thrown out that could have your Social Security number on it. Next, who's going to warn you if you're at risk?
The 6 News Nightcast, next.
September 11th, 2001. 5 years later, America remembers the tributes across the country and at the hallowed grounds where the 4 planes struck. And Hoosiers react to the path to 9/11, clearing the controversy. Next on the Nightcast.
From the team on your side, you're watching 6 News with Ray Cortopassi, Martha Weaver, Storm Team 6 Chief Meteorologist Kevin Gregory, and Day First Sports. This is the 6 News Nightcast.
Tonight, twin beams of light stream upward over New York City, a visual reminder of the twin towers that once graced the world's most famous skyline. Tonight, of course, marks the 5th anniversary of the September 11th terror attack.
The images from that day still haunt us. First, we saw chaos in New York City after 2 hijacked planes slammed into the twin towers of the World Trade Center, blanketing the city in ash. We later learned another hijacked plane crashed into the Pentagon, and yet another plane had plunged into a Pennsylvania field. Nearly 3,000 Americans lost their lives that fateful day in 2001. In his address to the nation tonight, President Bush reflected on the nation's response.
The attacks were meant to bring us to our knees, and they did, but not in the way the terrorists intended. Americans united in prayer, came to the aid of neighbors in need, and resolved that our enemies would not have the last word.
Ceremonies took place nationwide today, including in central Indiana. Ben Morriston begins our coverage from Muncie.
Did you stand there in shock at the sight of the black smoke rising against the blue sky?
The horrific pictures of that September day are burned on our brains. A ceremony in Muncie focused on a single goal:
to remember everybody who died, as well as the men and women who put their lives on the line every day.
A sea of flags represented the civilians, the firefighters, and the police officers who died in the terrorist attacks of 9/11. One Muncie fireman told the crowd, first responders stand ever vigilant.
Should such an event occur again, be it by natural disaster or man-made, your local police, fire, and emergency medical services will respond.
A flag of honor carries the names of all the victims of 9/11, all 3,352 of them.
How draining 9/11 is. Going through the emotions, going through the loss, through the hurt. To that I say good. We need to remember.
Folks here say there won't be any forgetting 9/11. You think it's possible for this day to ever be forgotten?
No, I hope not. I hope they have something like this every year. We should remember.
No, I don't think anybody will ever forget.
You hope?
Yeah, I hope.
The victims' names on the flag of honor represent their immortality. Folks here say they won't be forgotten. In Muncie on the Nightcast, I'm Ben Morriston, 6 News.
And the tolling of the bells provided a somber symphony at Ground Zero today. Family and friends stood at the former site of the World Trade Center to recite the names of their loved ones and the other victims of the attacks. Roses were distributed to family members who placed them in the reflection pools that now sit where the towers once did. The water was soon covered with roses. A handful of children did their part to remember the September 11th victims. They put American flags on the memorial in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. That is where Flight 93 crashed after a passenger uprising apparently stopped hijackers from crashing that plane into the White House or U.S. Capitol in Washington. And President and Mrs. Bush attended a wreath-laying ceremony at the Pentagon. The wreath was placed in front of a limestone block charred by fire after Flight 77 crashed into that building. 184 people lost their lives when the plane hit the Pentagon. That visit was the president's last memorial stop of the day.
And many of us who watched the events of 9/11 were shocked and horrified by the images. But imagine what it was like for people with loved ones caught in that chaos, especially those whose loved ones never made it out. Jennifer Carmack spoke with one family who hopes their loss is not in vain.
And of course, the missing goes on all the time, every single day.
It's hard for Sue Weaver to believe 5 years have passed since she lost her son, Army Major Steve Long, in the 9/11 attacks.
It's the little things that take you by surprise. Just a voice, you'll hear a voice that sounds like sounds like my son. Something will come up, or I'll run across something in the house, and that's the sort of thing that just takes your breath away.
Long was working in the Pentagon when it was hit by a plane. He and 183 others did not make it out alive.
Let politics nor anything else stand in the way of supporting those who are still in service.
Today, family and friends gathered to remember his life and all that was lost that day.
We lost a loved one, but I think America lost its innocence.
It still hurts.
Yeah.
It's changed my life.
Yeah.
Though every anniversary of the attacks have been difficult for this family, this one has been especially trying.
I saw his name run across CNN, and it made it real.
Yet today is also a milestone for their healing.
I've seen the progress from start to finish, and now I see the recovery end of it. And I can see it in my wife's face, I can see it in Sue's face that, you know, we're getting through it.
Major Long's family holds pride heavy in their hearts, reason they want to make sure Americans never forget September 11th.
I want people to realize the sacrifice of Steve's life and to remember why it happened.
In Danville, on the Nightcast, Jennifer Carmack, 6 News.
And Major Long was laid to rest with full honors in Arlington National Cemetery on October 8th, 27 days after the attacks.
Well, 5 years later, many Hoosiers wonder where we stand in terms of security. Like airports nationwide, intense security checks at Indianapolis International are part and parcel of air travel. At the city-county building, steel blockades prevent vehicles from charging into the underground garage, and visitors are forced to empty your pockets and purses before you can enter. The Marion County Emergency Operations Center has been fitted with new computers and other equipment funded by the federal government.
We're much better integrated across the region than we were 5 years ago. We're much better integrated with state and federal authorities than we were 5 years ago.
Well, tonight marked the conclusion of the ABC miniseries that dramatized the events surrounding the attacks. The two-night program drew criticism and controversy before it even aired. Well, tonight we gathered a sampling of viewers like you to get their thoughts on the path to 9/11. ABC Entertainment called it a docudrama. Disclaimers shown throughout the film insist the show's a dramatization drawn from a variety of sources, including the 9/11 Commission report, and has, for dramatic and narrative purposes, fictionalized scenes. Tonight, we brought a group of Hoosiers together to watch and judge for themselves.
It's really disturbed.
The film paints a picture of failures among the Clinton and Bush administrations to prevent the attacks. It ran commercial-free with a break only for a live 15-minute speech to the nation from President Bush.
I'm not a politician. I don't go out and read the 9/11 Commission report on Saturday for fun. So I have to look at this and decide, you know, what's true and what's not true, and I don't know where that line got crossed.
If they had stayed with the 9/11 Commission report, I could trust the feelings I have right now. I'm very upset, I'm very sad, I'm very distraught.
Very dramatically done. I know there was some artistic license there, because if there weren't, then nobody would be watching it.
We also got the perspective of a University of Indianapolis terrorism professor who's been watching the movie with his students. While he knows the film has some fiction, it's got enough facts to make it worthwhile.
As someone who teaches students, you know, it makes it more interesting and makes some of the, you know, the elements of the plot stand out in their minds and some of the key players, and hopefully in the end will help them remember it better.
And many critics have said the $40 million film tells out-and-out lies. Others express a hope that it will spur more Americans to read the 9/11 Commission report for themselves. Still to come this evening, 2 more Hoosier lives lost. One on the war on terror, the other the war on our city streets.
Plus, a convicted sex offender not doing what Indiana law requires. Why he says he has nothing to feel guilty about.
Personal information exposed, how a recent discovery in a dumpster could put a state law to the test.
And a break in the rain for now. Round 1 of heavy rain has moved through. We'll show you some more rain. When will this arrive and how long will it stick around?
And I'm Dave First. Also coming up, Indy 500 champ Sam Hortus Jr. had a million reasons to come to Indy today. We'll tell you why. And you know, what's a newscast these days without addressing the highest rated NFL game of the weekend? And it's all thanks to Brothers in Arms. A look back at Peyton and Eli with the Nightcast continues.
Indianapolis police are investigating another homicide tonight. Police were called to the intersection of Glen Drive and Adams Street. That's on the east side about 8:15 tonight. And there they found a man shot several times in a car. He was pronounced dead at the scene. And police were still trying to positively identify that man. Earlier in the night, police were called to that same neighborhood on reports of a man firing a rifle. They haven't said, though, whether those two incidents are connected. Familiar territory for a convicted sex offender living in Martinsville.
For the second time in about a year, 45-year-old David Anthus has been charged with failing to register as a sex offender. Anthus tonight remains defiant.
Should you have registered?
Nope.
Are you not a convicted sex offender?
Well, I saw a plea bargain back in '98.
Anthus has registered in the past, but not since living with his mother in June. He pled guilty to molesting an 11-year-old girl, for which he served 2 years in prison. Well, he now claims somebody else did it, and he should not have to register. Morgan County prosecutor says the law is the law.
Well, the state's new anti-ID theft law may get its first test after somebody dumped files with social security numbers and addresses into a dumpster. The Indiana Attorney General's office calls this. They want the files that were dumped outside a telemarketing business on the south side of Indianapolis to be investigated. Former employees of Vexstar say they found their personnel records and also mortgage applications for clients in the trash. Those applications were from people refinancing on their homes from coast to coast.
Somebody looking to do wrong. That was easy pickings for them right there.
They hit the jackpot?
Yeah.
The new state law, people whose names were tossed in the trash would have to be informed their personal information was exposed. Company's lawyer denies the former employee's allegations, saying the company shredded sensitive information. You can read Vexstar's complete unedited response to Call 6 on our website, theindychannel.com.
Well, there is word tonight that another Hoosier soldier has been killed in Iraq. 19-year-old Private First Class Anthony Sieg died Saturday during an attack on a military convoy. Sieg was from Sunman, Indiana. That's about 30 miles west of Cincinnati. He'd been in the Army for about a year and served 2 months in Iraq as a military police officer. And people like Private Sieg are the inspiration behind a local event that's become part of Central Indiana's 9/11 Ritual of Remembrance.
Yeah, as they've done since 2001, this patriotic group stood proud on the I-69 overpass. This is at 96th Street. They're waving flags during the morning and evening rush hours. They're called Freedom Flyers, and they say it's important for Hoosiers to remember the sacrifices Americans have made and are now making to protect us and our country. And the flag was front and center at another September 11th observance, but this one relied on the human touch. Volunteers formed a human flag at 8:46 a.m. That is the moment the first World Trade Center tower exploded in a shower of flames. In Boston, students at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, known as MIT, held a different sort of memorial for the 5th anniversary. They hoisted a fire truck to the top of the campus dome. The students raised the truck in honor of the victims of the terrorist attacks on September 11th.
Wow. Well, there are many ways to honor the lives lost on September 11th, including the annual RTV6 blood drive. Cameron Davidson was one of the hundreds who donated today. Back in 2001, he was a little guy. He was only 11 years old, too young to give blood. But today, he's old enough. He rolled up his sleeves to make up for the lost time and to make a difference in the lives of fellow Hoosiers.
I'd like to help people, and I figured this is one of the ways you can do that quickly.
Has wanted to donate for a long time, and now with the new law at 16 with parental consent, they're allowed to.
So you want to join Maureen and Cameron? Well, the blood drive continues tomorrow from 9 to 8 at all blood center branches. You can call the toll-free number 1-800-632-4722. There you'll get information about where the location is nearest you, or log on to our website, theindychannel.com.
Well, have you heard this? Maybe you've heard about it. An Indianapolis radio personality is putting his beef with the BMV over the airwaves. He says he has a problem that many of you can probably relate to.
I'll show you where the heaviest rain has already fallen, and check out TrueView for tomorrow from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Showers, thunderstorms again. How much more rain will be in your rain gauge? Find out coming up.